know that group of 160, 165 kids throughout the year and know them well so that they can make those educational decisions for them. Again, it's going to be whole child and personalized. We are really looking at some of the project-based. A lot of our Ed Leader 21 conversations have been around that project-based learning, student interest, student-driven, teacher-facilitated type work. Curriculum-wide exploration. This one, Mr. Fields and I are really excited about. One thing, in a junior high school, because we have those ninth graders, we do have finals weeks where kids have finals. In a middle school, we can kind of look at that differently, and we're planning to look at that differently. And what we're talking about doing is, especially in the second, third, and fourth quarter, the last few days of the quarter, having what we're calling either J-term or mini courses. Don't worry, we'll come up with a cool, catchy, fun name for it. But what those are is, those are the opportunities for us to listen to kids and for the teachers to kind of explore some of their interests and passions with students. So this might be an opportunity for kids to sign up for longer blocks of time to learn things like, how to tie fishing lures. Or it might be a spot where we have a couple science teachers who are just really into the science of cooking, and we have some spaces where that can happen in our building. And so that's where they may teach kids how to cook an Italian dinner some night. And having those sorts of experiences be part of our kids' day. We're committed to that happening next year in our building during those times. And then, of course, making sure that there's also robust intervention and enrichment. As we're moving forward, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, what about gifted programming, and what about special education? Well, those are all pieces that we are continuing to talk about, and they're happening kind of concurrently to this main conversation about middle school. So as Mr. Fields and I and our transition teams have been meeting about middle school and what middle school is looking like, we're pulling in Paul Lee, who's our special ed director, and we're pulling in Rachel Larson to talk more about gifted programming and EL programming, and making sure that all of those things are moving forward together. So I don't have all the answers to those questions about acceleration or gifted programming or special education, but please know that those things are happening concurrently with our middle school programming. So again, we talked through a little bit about what we're hoping to offer. All of this right now is in a draft form. So these are just samples of what we might be looking at as we move forward. So again, 6th and 7th grade will probably look the most similar, and they'll be prescribed courses that they take. And then in 8th grade, we're looking at more of a current model, which is an elective type model that we'd be able to offer for kids. I think the biggest concern I think parents have right now is, how are you going to get my kid from elementary school into middle school and make sure they feel safe? And so we have also had some really robust conversations. I call it induction. Some people may call it orientation. But what are we going to do about that? So I want to just walk through traditionally what we do to welcome kids into our building when they're transitioning from an elementary school. So usually the counselors come out to the elementary school in mid-January, and or early February, to talk about registration. And again, when they're a 7th grader coming in, there isn't a lot to talk about. They're usually choosing a music class that they need to take. At Stillwater Junior High School and Oakland Junior High School, you have to choose between band, choir, or orchestra. That class happens during the school day. My guess is that will continue to be the case as we move into our middle school, that you will need to choose that subject. Then in mid-February, we usually have a new parent meeting where we invite you to our school and we walk you through a typical day at our school so that you can see what that's like. We have Friday Night Live, which is basically a big party for the kids, so they get to know the school, and there are different games and activities they have throughout the school. Like last year, I think for some reason they had a locker challenge where they had to open the locker and out popped my face. I'm like, great, thanks. Now the kids are scared of me. Fantastic. But they do things like that. The pool's open, the gyms are open. It's a big fun night. That if your kids are around and in town, they should go to that because it's going to be very fun. And then in mid-August, we host new student orientations. You have to listen to me talk again for a little bit, and then we give your schedules out to kids and families, and you can get your picture taken, and kids start practicing their locker, and then they'll go on a little tour, and they'll find all their classrooms, and they'll practice their locker again and continue to practice their locker, because as we've heard from your kids, they're really nervous about the locker. And we totally understand. But I also asked them, how many of you can memorize, how many of you have your lunch pin memorized? And they all raised their hand. And I said, it's the same thing. And that kind of, I think that, for at least for a second, you saw the shoulders kind of relax. But then we also invite new students back to our back to school night. Usually back to school nights involve just the parents, and the parents get to come and see each classroom. We invite the new students to that because then they get to see their teachers and meet the teachers and walk their class one more time and practice that locker. So this is what we traditionally do. We do know that this is a unique year, and middle school is unique, and so we're looking at some new things to do. So first of all, we did meet with your kids. And we came out and met with the 5th and 6th graders this past October already and asked them, what do you already know about our school? What do you hope school is going to be like for you, and what do you want to learn? What are you nervous about, and what questions do you have? And basically they're nervous about lunch and dissecting frogs. Those are the things that they're concerned about, and getting lost. But then we're also talking kind of in-house right now about a model of orientation that looks a little different than what we do right now. I call it a camp model. When I was in South Washington County schools before this, we had a Camp 6 at Lake Middle School, and the kids would come in as 6th graders. They would come in August for 3 mornings. And part of that was their web program. The web program is where you pair 8th grade students with the new students coming in, and they do a lot of, fun getting to know you, team building type games with a small group of kids. But so those 8th graders get to know those 6th graders. And when those 6th graders come in on that first day of school, the older kids don't look so scary because they know them and they've seen them. Usually it takes about 80 to 90 8th graders to participate in that. We're anticipating this year, we are using this web program, we're anticipating needing a lot more than that because we have twice as many kids coming into our building. But that's usually the first day of our camp model. The second and third day, and they're just mornings, of that camp model then are kids meeting in their advisory with their advisory teacher and all the kids in their advisory, and going through some team building there in their advisory class then. And then also getting to practice their locker and putting things in their locker and going through how do I set up the binder that we ask you to put together at the beginning of the school year, and where are my classes, and which teacher's in that class and which kids are in that class. So going through a process like that. Now that's very expensive because you bus kids in 3 different days. So there are different ways you can do that we're looking at. So we're not 100% sure on how we're going to do that, but that's a model we're looking at. And then like I talked about the web program where everybody belongs, its sister program is Link Crew, which is the high school version. So we have committed to both of those things in our district for this year. And we will have a Link Crew, and we will have the web program to help bring our kids in the building. And web isn't just a thing that happens in the summer, it's then a check-in throughout the year with the new students by those 8th graders and those 8th grade team leaders. Of course, it's facilitated by a well-trained group of teachers. And that training for our teachers is happening this winter. So those are some of the things we're looking at. In addition to we're bouncing around some other ideas about this spring and trying to get some students into our schools with their current teacher this spring, so that it doesn't feel so scary to be in our school, because with some people they know and some teachers they know. So as we move forward, we just want to say look for more from us. Mr. Fields and I, we sent out that first letter, and we hope that we're going to be able to continue sending out different newsletters about what's going on. And of course, these are our pictures from middle school that if you got that letter, you've seen already. So you're like, why are you showing this to me again? It's terrible. But we've had a lot of fun reminiscing about middle school and what it meant to us. I did this is hair back here, by the way, from Mr. Fields, if you see him. He's all business in the front, but a lot of party back here. Yeah, and this is an Iowa Hawkeye sweater, by the way, just so you know. So there's a lot of Hawkeye blood running there. Anyway, so thanks so much. And I guess at this point, I just want to know what other questions you have. I may not be able to answer all of them, but happy to answer any I can.